You know what time it is. You know what time it is.
How firm thy friendship. Oh,
you know what time it is. I'm raw with them boys of the fall. You know what time it is. On the ground with a nose for the ball. You know what time it is. Blood, sweat, and them tears for this game. Leaving it all out on the field with no fear for you lames. Yeah, you know what time it is. Come brawl with them boys of the fall. Covered in gray and scarlet, massive, stiff arms to your jaw. We breaking it. We sick of seeing you clowns with the crown. We taking it.
What's good, Buckeye Nation? Welcome to the Buckeye Boys, where we talk college football with real fans. I'm Mello, and that's Daniel. Today, we got a special show for you guys. We're going to talk everything Ohio State and some. How you doing, Daniel?
Good, man. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing well. Just enjoying life, getting ready for my daughter's first track meet tomorrow.
Yeah.
How about you?
That's good. That's good.
Yes, sir.
Just same old thing, man. In here trying to keep this water warm and this refrigerator cold, man. You know how it is.
Absolutely. How's the weather in Houston? I just left Dallas last weekend, actually. It was
Man,
freezing.
It's cold. It's cold down here right now. Not what you guys are used to up that way, but I mean for us it's got a nice little chill in the air. It's about 30, 34, 35. It's been pretty cold the last couple of days. Not snowing like it was a couple of weeks ago, but we're pretty cool down here right now.
Right. I like that hat, man. It's looking good. I need to get me one of those for real.
Yeah, as caught this at we went out last time at one of the bookstores around there, man. So
Yeah. I just wanted to jump into it real quick. So we got a new DC.
Yeah.
It wasn't the DC that your son committed to or that was on the team, right? And you hear from the fan base, everyone's worried about him. And I think it's mostly a lot of people who have been trolling Buckeye fans, especially from the team up north. And they're like, well, look what happened with the Lions. That guy doesn't know what he's doing. And Bill Belichick was the one calling the defense in New England. So I want your perspective as being an ex-football player and having a son that's a high-level football player. What are your thoughts on this hire?
Man, I personally, I think it's a great hire. I was a huge fan of what they did in New England. So I mean, when I heard Matt Patricia, Pencil P, man, I was happy, man. Like I say, I'm always of the mindset of, can you work for guys who, have been to places that you're trying to get to. So I mean, I think it's always a plus, man, to be able to get in the building, with the guy who's done things at the highest level, and succeeded. So I mean, to me personally, man, I mean, I don't put too much into some of the things that people are saying about, what his track record may be. I mean, hey, you spend over a decade with some of these guys, you're going to pick up some things. So, I mean, sooner or later, I don't. But people have that mindset of fake it till you make it. I figure at some point, man, he's made it. You know what I mean? And that thing really was his. So I mean, I think it's a great hire. I'm excited, for what they got going. I'm really looking forward to seeing, what kind of direction they're going to take this thing in. Personally, I don't really think they're going to change very much. To be honest, I think they're gonna, and again, being one of these guys that is used to fitting things to his personnel and being a game planning kind of guy, things are gonna be real fluid. So I mean, man, I think it's just gonna, just really open up these guys' thought process, and it's just going to open up a whole new world of ball for these guys, man. So I'm excited for them.
I actually agree with you on that, and I actually think with Coach Day talking to the assistants about what each assistant was looking for in the DC, and then him going out and getting Matty P, I feel like it's gonna be a smooth transition. I think they're gonna work well together. I don't think you're gonna see as much bumping heads because everyone up front already knows what the expectation is of each other. So I think I'm gonna be honest with you. I think it's an upgrade. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I think we upgraded the coordinator position on defense.
Really?
Personal, yeah, I do
Yeah.
because, like you said, he runs multiple defenses. He fits his defenses to his personnel. He's done it at the highest level in the hardest league ever.
Yeah.
And now he's going to come down here. The only thing that I think he might need to do is just adjust the terminology and just simplify things for these kids because they're not obviously pros. You can't spend 50 hours with them.
Right.
You know, there's time constraints. So that brings me to my last question on Matty P before we move on. What do you think a successful first season for him looks like with this defense and with all the changeover?
Ooh, man, that's a good question, man. I would, man, the expectations are high, man. You know, not trying to speak for anybody in the building. I really think these guys are really in the mindset of repeating.
Yeah.
So man, that's a tough call right now as far as, you know, what it looks like personally for, you know, Patricia. That's tough to say, man. You know, I'm sure he has his own, you know, goals and things that he wants to, you know, do. You know, man, I would probably say, you know, from some of the things that I hear, I would say that's probably one thing that you brought up is probably one of the things that will probably get addressed the quickest is simplifying things. You know, just kind of, you know, keeping it simple. I mean, you know, keeping things short and sweet, you know, being able, you know, like you know, guys always say it, and, you know, it's cliche stuff, man. You know, you want to be able to, you know, not think too much and play fast, man. And you know, if you got a system that you could put guys in, these young guys in, and to where they don't have to do that, you know, there's not too much, you know, thinking involved, man, and they can just play ball, man. I think that's successful in my eyes.
That is true because I don't know if you saw the Believe with the Ohio State guys, the ex players, and they had the truth teller. That's what we call Denzel Burke because he just tells the truth. You put a mic in front of him, you ask him a question, he's telling you the truth. He might take a little bit off of it and not use some names, but he's going to tell you exactly what he's thinking.
Yeah, Denzel's a grown man.
Yeah. And he was talking about the first time they played Oregon, and he was saying like it was too complicated. It was too much stuff that they were asking us to do. Yeah, stuff we weren't comfortable with, and stuff that we haven't ran before. So after that, I think that's what Coach Knowles did was simplify the defense a little bit on what they were going to run, and I think that's why you saw them take off because you don't want the worst thing you could do to a team full of athletes is to handcuff them and slow them down. You're taking away their superpower.
Right. Yeah, I always say, man, you know, I always, you know, quiet defense is a confused defense in my eyes, man. So, I mean, you know, man, I want to see guys just kind of back there, just kind of chirping, you know, moving around, you know, having a lot of energy, man. And you know, and again, you know, knowing their assignments. And I think that's another big thing that, you know, I really liked, you know, with Knowles, what he was doing. But I know this is a staple thing with Patricia is the disguising. And you know, that's one thing that I'm really excited about, man, because that's personally on my end. That's one thing that I thought Devin needed to work on a little bit more with his personal game was being able to disguise things a little bit more. So, man, that's personally for me, that's what I'm really excited about seeing. You know, just changing looks for quarterbacks, just really trying to muddy things up, man. They did that. You know, that's one of his staples. So I mean, you know, that's really what I'm excited to see.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, as a dad. I just heard you say something that just made me want to ask this question. So do you think that's like if you had to pick one thing that you think your son needs to improve on the most, would you say it is the disguising what he's doing in the coverages?
Personally, yeah, I think that's one thing that I would kind of I've spent a lot of time talking to him over his last season about. Just kind of changing the looks a little bit, especially at North Shore, because they really got and no slight to them because they were good enough to do things this way. You know, they were pretty static in their looks. Wasn't a lot of moving. I mean, you know, you pretty much knew they were going to be in man 95% of the time, you know, and they're just lining up and playing. You know, I would kind of, you know, like, hey man, you know, change the look up a little bit, man. You know, hey, if you you know, start from depth and then walk your way up. Or you know, change your leverage on things. You know, I would always kind of, you know, talk with him about that kind of stuff. So that's one thing I am excited to kind of see him get into a little bit more because you know I think it's a huge part of the game.
Yeah.
Especially out there on that island, man. If a guy knows that you just flat foot right there in front of him, man, and that's what it is. That's what it is. And these guys are good enough to, change up what they're doing, to make things a little tougher for you, man. So again, yeah, I think that's one thing I'm really excited to see is
That's awesome. I'm gonna be looking for that as well. So that will be a nice, easy checkbox to be like, all right, he's definitely growing here, and they're doing what they said they were gonna do for my son and for one of our favorite players, honestly. So that brings me into the second question I wanted to ask you. So now they're talking about changing the college football playoff again and changing the format and adding a couple of teams, and basically the big and the SEC are running things. So I just wanted to ask two questions real quick. Do you think it's good for the sport? And do you think it's good for Ohio State itself?
Personally, okay, so I've heard a lot of guys talking over the last couple of weeks, some of the national guys, and there's a couple, I'm not going to call their names, but there's a couple of guys out there that I think they're like what they would call themselves purists and things like that. I've heard a couple of guys even say silly things like they don't even care about the playoffs. So it's just like weird. It's weird to me.
Yeah, that is weird.
So it's just like, then what are we doing? The end of the day, man, college football is great, man, and I think they need to crown a champion.
Yes.
I think right now they're in the best situation that they've been in before, because you get some people to say weird stuff, but I think this is probably the purest thing that they can do. Having a playoff system and really knowing the guys who won it at the end were really the guys who won the tournament, right? So, man, I think it's great. Personally, now I've heard some things about how Big Ten and the SEC are kind of out there flexing their muscles right now. Kind of taking this thing over. From what I understand, they're kind of running this show.
Yeah.
So hey, man, but and like I say, there's the old saying, big bank tanks, little bank. So I mean, it is what it is, man. It's big boy ball. So I mean, man, let's line it up and and really find out who's the best. Personally, I now my own thought is I think it needs to go to 16.
Okay.
And why? In the case of buys, right? I don't really. Let's use this last playoff as an example. I think when you really get back into it, the Oregons, those guys really, in a lot of ways, I think they got shafted with the bye, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing, right? And I think this is the real reason why I think they should do away with the bye and just go to the 16, right? Because you win your conference, you go, you go through that gauntlet, right? And then you don't even you got to wait an extra week to play, and then it's at a neutral site.
Yeah.
So I believe, hey, look, if we're going to reward the top seeds, reward them with a home game. So that's why I believe personally. Now this is just me. I think the first two rounds should be on campus.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's. I mean, you guys saw it. I mean, man, the Tennessee game, was the shoe was rocking, man. I mean that. I mean, I'm pretty sure anybody who was at that game, can't wait to get to something like that again next year. So I mean, I think 16 to me is the best way to go, and I think you do that to be able to reward those top teams with that home game.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I was going to ask you why 16, but you just explained it. Because without 16, the top four seeds can't play a home game.
No, it was like what was the point of winning? Winning your conference is to play at a neutral site. You know what I mean?
Because with 14,
the neutral site might be 1,000 miles away.
Yeah, with the 14 setup, it would be 4 big teams automatic, 4 SEC automatic, 2 ACC, 2 Big 12s, and then 2 at large for the group of 5.
And here's I'm another guy who's a little different on this thought process as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think the group of 5 needs its own playoff.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
I mean, it's just about every state that I know of is doing it that way. I mean, here in Texas, we crowned 2 state champs in every division.
Yeah.
Why can't we, why can't we do it that way as well?
Yep.
I'm looking at, some of the comments, man. I'm also personally one of these guys who thinks that, they need to do away with the conference championship games.
You do?
To make this thing work.
Why do you think that?
I personally, and I don't want to sound sacrilegious or anything. I think with the way the system is going right now, I really just don't think it means anything.
Yeah.
I don't think winning your conference means anything anymore.
It doesn't. The only thing it means is dollars for the conference.
Yeah, you're just playing an extra game. You're just putting your kids, in another week of harm. You know what I mean? So I mean, I think they should do away with that game.
But the problem is when you get these bigwigs that are looking at just dollar signs and numbers, they're not thinking about the players, right? So they're like, all right, if we cancel the Big Ten championship, we're losing $30 million alone just off that one game, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, that's a lot of money to lose. Now, how do we reinvest it? If we could think of another way that they can make that money back up somewhere, then I could see them getting rid of it. But as of right now, I don't think they're going to get rid of it. Now,
I don't see them doing it either. But like I say, I personally that's my thought. I get rid of the conference, get rid of the conference championship games. Just get right into it, man.
Because it really, if you think about it, it's not advantageous to play in your conference championship anymore, in my opinion.
No, I mean,
you're taking an extra risk.
We saw that.
And it doesn't mean anything if you could win the Natty. Really is all about winning the Natty, to be honest. That's a new day and age that we're in. And people are going to take a long time to understand that. That's why I said November 30th, they could have that. They were 8-5, the best 8-5 team in the history of college football. But we're the national champions and we're king of the hill.
Yeah. I mean, ask Oregon if they like to take that back. You know what I mean? Ask Georgia if they'd like to take that back. You know what I mean? And not play that game. I'm pretty sure they, you catch them in the right situation, they'll tell you, yeah.
So staying on this line, along this line, what I've become aware of is that the Big's TV deal ends in 2030. The Big 12's TV deal ends in 2030. The SEC does not end that year. But is that the year that the ACC actually falls apart and all the teams leave? And then is that the year that Notre Dame joins a conference?
I don't think, especially after, again, after what just happened this past year on the Notre Dame end, I don't think after getting that check, I don't think Notre Dame's ever going to jump in the conference, especially if they're going to guarantee him a spot.
So this is where I'm at with that.
Yeah.
If the ACC falls apart, right? And then all the other teams, like the Big and the SEC dissolves all the ACC teams. Absorbs the ACC teams. Who's going to schedule Notre Dame? How do they get a game? How are they going to have enough on their resume to actually make it into the conference? You see, the Big and the SEC, in my opinion, can force Notre Dame. Like, you're going to pick one of us. You're going to get in the conference, or you're not playing for a Natty ever.
And there might have to be where it goes. You know what I mean? Somebody might have to put their foot on them, man. And just put it to them that way. But like, hell, man. I mean, what they pick up for playing in the Natty? $20 million.
Oh yeah,
and that's
I think they were picking up $20 million a game.
Yeah,
were they picking up $20 million a game?
I'm not sure, but like I say, that's all money that they cap, man. So I mean, why would I go join in the conference, man, where I got to go split that up with the guys who didn't even make it? You know what I mean? That's crazy. And that's another thing that I really don't understand. Even in the cases of some of the other big teams, man, that had to do it that way, man. That's a crazy way of going about it, man. I mean, I just don't get that. I think that's, I'd rather be selfish about that, man, and keep all that in my pocket if I possibly could. But, hey, man, it is what it is. I mean, So
that brings me to, I think April 7th is a big day for college football in the universe in terms of, the legal ramification of revenue sharing and NIL. So in terms of revenue sharing and NIL, I think they're trying to put a 20 million cap on revenue sharing.
I've heard that number before.
Huh?
I've heard that number.
Yeah, so I'm not 100% on how it ties in with NIL. If it's like you could get the revenue sharing, but would you still be able to do NIL deals separately with your own agent?
From
Is
what
that
I
possible?
understand, yes, that is correct.
Okay, so my
Yeah.
question to you, man, because you're going to go through this, quite frankly, how will that affect recruiting for college teams in general, but mainly in terms of Ohio State as a program, seeing how we're Ohio State fans and that's what we care about.
Man, you know, experience will kind of tell you, man, the guys that we're rooting for
Mhm.
really had their hands on it. They really prepared for it. Those guys had a well thought out plan. They knew exactly what they were doing. So I don't think Ohio State's going to have any kind of problems as far as managing that. Now, it is interesting to me when, especially when you talk about some of these teams, man, that, you hear the rumors about, they're offering just insane amounts, of money to high school kids. And this is, I'm not wishing this on anybody, but it's going to be amazing to sit back and watch some of these guys, quote unquote, blow their salary cap on one or two guys, man, and destroy their teams for a couple years.
Yeah.
Because again, I think this thing is gonna, kind of roll to this NFL type of system.
Yeah.
You're going to start, slotting guys by positions, things like that. But, of course, you're going to have teams that are desperate, teams that are, their eyes are a little bit bigger than their stomach. And, they're going to be in a bad spot. They're going to have a recruit that's in their backyard who doesn't want to fool with him, and they got to buy him. I mean, and if that price gets too high, man, they might ruin their program.
You know who that sounds like?
I'm not calling out anybody in particular.
I'm going to. To me, that sounds like the team up north and Bryce Underwood. They had to pay him, what, 12, 13 million just to stay home? He only lived like 10 miles from the campus.
So, again, man, I mean, might be a team out west might be in that same situation as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, it is what it is, man. I mean, I think these guys are really going to have to do their work, man, and really figure it out. And like I said, it's a bad word in the there's a lot of people that don't like this word in the NFL game, but it's exactly what it is, man. It's parody. And to me, I think it's great. To be able, not for certain schools, just to be able to hoard kids, man, and just kind of have these guys in the back pocket. This NIL thing has allowed, guys to just be able to branch out, man, and just, it's really spread everything out, man. And it's just, giving guys opportunities to go other places and be stars in other places, man, if they can handle that and do that.
You know what I think is mostly done? Personally, like what you said, parody, obviously I agree with that. But it's putting the coaches on the hot seat. You got to really coach. It's going to show if you can actually develop or not. If you're really a coach or if you're just really good at recruiting a whole bunch of talent.
Well, and that what you just said is really the thing, man. I don't look at it so much as what coaching is an aspect of it, but again, it's the recruiting relationship part of it, man. That recruiting relationship is just not, the year and a half leading up into your senior season. This is it's a year round thing now. You know what I mean? If you do not have a good relationship with that position coach, that head coach, that OC, DC, man, these guys are going to look to move around, man. And here's the, there's no laws as far as I know. There's no bylaws in place right now for, put a thumb on things like tampering and and things like that, man. So I mean, I think.
How can you even prove if somebody tampered? That's my thing.
But I mean, if you're really watching what's going on out there in the recruiting world, the guys got to be getting tampered with.
Oh yeah, they're getting tampered with, but knowing and proving are two different things. You know what I mean?
Right.
So how can you enforce it?
I don't know how you're going to do that, but they got to do something. I mean, and I think what another thing that I've kind of heard float around is these things are going to be contractual.
Yeah, that's
and it's going to be a duration of time on it. and you know, and it's not going to be a year to year thing where you can just kind of just jump around and, you know, hey, I'll take a couple dollars here, but you know, I ain't really feeling I'm gonna go over here and get another bag.
Right,
So I
right.
mean, you know, because I mean, you know, I'm not gonna call any names, but
Lacey be on it, man. I'm telling
yeah,
you.
man, she on it. You know, the few deals. I mean, you know, but you know that she's saying that, you
Yeah.
know, guys are gonna run around and then, you know, they're gonna get enticed by some of the wrong things, and you know, I just, you know, that's the tough part with that, man. And if you're not really grounded in what you're doing, man, you can really get put up in a trick bag with this thing.
Yeah. I always wondered, has it become harder for coaches to actually recruit now with NIL and the transfer portal? I'm talking about for coaches at Ohio State, like, because I think it's a new era. And I was trying to get Anthony Slagle and Bobby Carpenter had Brian Hartline on their show the other day.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get them to ask that question specifically because I always wonder, to me, he's the best recruiter in the country, and to me, the best developer at his position group.
Correct.
So I'm wondering, because you see all these guys going after Chris Henry Jr. hardcore, but the thing that I find solace in is that Chris Henry is who he is and his thought process. But I always wonder, is it harder for Brian Hartline to recruit nowadays than it was before NIL and transfer portal? Because if he says yes, and that's the best recruiter in the country, you could just imagine what it is for everybody else. But I didn't really get a clear answer to that.
I'm going to say each case is probably a little bit individual. You know, certain guys are probably going to have a little bit harder time than most, but I think overall, with just the way that thing is going, I think if any guy would say that things are the same or they're easier, I think they're lying. I think this whole thing has just kind of made it I think it has made it tougher for these guys to be able, you know, again, you know, some of these guys just want to coach ball, you know what I mean? So, but you know, it's not just, you know, X's and O's anymore, man. You really got to pay attention to your Jimmys and Joes, you know, and you almost, you know, you really have to build a relationship with these guys, man, and understand, you know, what it is that they want out of things, just to be able to keep them. You know what I mean?
Yep, I do. So I had a question. 7-on-7 has been a huge part of your life, and it's becoming a huge part of just the culture and the fabric of American football life.
Right.
So I had a couple of questions. Who's the team to watch this year? Who's the players to watch this year? And who do you think is winning it all? Is it going to be SFE? Is it going to be Fast? Is it going to be somebody else like the Lobos, the boys out from Hawaii? Or is it going to be somebody else we're not even tracking?
Man, you know, I'm gonna just be honest. You know, on the national scale, I think the best team around is in South Florida. I mean, you know, they got a really great program down there. We had the opportunity to get with those guys last year, OT7. Man, you know, and you know that you brought that up, you know, again, you know, we're talking, you know, recruiting things of that nature, man. And this is a huge part of it, right? If you got a young man who's a ball player, right? You know, skill guy, you know, something like that. This is a part of it. 7-on-7 is something that it's I would say it's a funny way of putting it, right? I think it's necessary, but any coach that you will talk to will tell you they don't give a shit about it. You know, personally, no college coach is going to tell you, I watched your tape on, you know, when you were playing 7-on-7 tournament out in the Woodlands. They're not going to tell you that. You know, but I think you know, that's a big thing. You know, as a parent, you know, again, I think it is necessary. You know, you want to make sure that you're with a club that's again, you know, it's just kind of like choosing a college. You want to get with a team that's just not out there just to win games, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of these guys, I'm not going to call their names, but they're out there just to win games. You know, they're out there to bring shine to themselves as coaches. You know, some of these guys are out there to hit on moms. I mean, you know, just being honest about it. Man, hey,
I saw a comedian do a stand-up about that. I thought he was just joking. I thought it was just a funny thing.
Man, look, bro. You
That's crazy.
you pull up on some of these national tournaments, man. If you're a married man, you might want to go sit in the car, because it's almost like a club out there when it comes to some of these parents. I'm just being honest, man. We've seen it. But I mean, again, man, 7-on-7 is important. I think it's a big piece to the recruiting of your player. Getting with the right people who are out there. And there's two ways of going about it, right? Again, I've seen some of the national guys. Played with SFE, of course. National champs last year, OT7, great group. Brett, runs a hell of a program, man. Great guy, man. Him and my guy Jay out there, really doing their thing. They got a great group of kids. They got a lot of dogs out there. Great group out in California. The little guys out low pro.
That's why, man. I called them Lobo.
Low pro. Yeah, low pro's great, man. They got a really good team. There's some other guys. There's some other good teams out there, man. Midwest Boom's really good out of Chicago area. A couple other guys, Tucson Turf. These are really good programs. They got really, really, really good coaches, man. They're serious guys. They're about developing these young men. Not so much about their own personal shine and what they can get out of that, or what guy they can pull onto their team, things like that, man. And then you got your your local level, right? Which is what I would say, most people want to really get into, right? Your local level, where you're just playing tournaments around town, or maybe about an hour outside of where you're from, right?
So is that more like, when you do talking local, is that more with your high school team?
Well, and see that, no, well, it depends, right? Because that's a different thing, right? So like from what I understand in Ohio, when those guys do 7-on-7, it's more team based, right? And we do have a team based thing down here in Texas, but it's pretty selective. Not everybody does it. They kind of mix in levels, things like that. They crown a state champion with this stuff, but when I first kind of learned about it, it was a little weird to me. Because I didn't know a lot of schools were doing it that way, right? Like I say, North Shore never did it. Wasn't anything that we ever did. They'd rather put on the pads and play spring ball. So when we're talking local level, it's still a hodgepodge of guys coming together. But again, you get opportunities to play with there's some guys here just in Houston, man. They really got some super teams. We were fortunate enough to play with a really great guy, Brandon Robinson, down in the Galveston County area with Dab. We rode with him for a couple of years, man. Just as we were a young kid, just trying to come up and get our feet wet. Ride out and play some tournaments, man. So they have that kind of stuff. But again, man, it's I think it's really important, especially if you're that receiver or that corner, man, who's trying to make a name for yourself. You're trying to get more reps. You're you just want to put more things on tape and just really work on your craft, man. You can really get a lot of work in with that stuff, man.
Yeah. So since we're talking about recruiting, I always ask you questions about my daughter. She's going through the recruiting process right now. So this year we didn't do high school because high school soccer is in the spring in Georgia instead of the fall, like a lot of other places.
Okay.
So club is how you get noticed and get your scholarships for soccer.
Okay.
So in terms of that, I took her out of soccer for high school. And we put her in track, try to work on her speed. And that way, when she goes to nationals in June in San Diego, she's faster and she's in better condition. I'm pretty sure your son ran track, right?
Yes, sir.
So my daughter's running the 100 and the 400. She's never done track before, ever in her life. She's 16. She's a junior in high school. And she was asking me, how do I run this 400? And I'm like, I don't know. I never ran track.
Okay.
So I wanted to get some advice from you on what I should tell her, because her first track meet is tomorrow.
Okay. Well, first thing, get some rest. Drink a lot of water.
Yeah.
I don't know what the weather's like down that way right now.
It's kind of cold. It's
kind of
probably
cold.
like similar to what you guys have right now.
Okay. So again, man, take care of your body. Make sure you're really stretched out and you're hydrated.
Yeah.
You know, the 100 meter is one thing. That's you know, pure raw speed. I would say, you know, if there's any work that you can do on that end, you know, it's really, you know, getting in those blocks and trying to really work on being explosive out of the gate. And I think that's one thing that'll really help as far as that's going. Now the 400 meters is a whole different thing. You know, and that's where I think you got to have a game plan when that's a game plan race. And don't a lot of people get the misconception that the 400 meters like a mid distance race. It is not. It's a sprint. That is a sprint race. You know, so you got to have a game plan with that race, right? And so one thing I would like to say is you want to get in that mindset of you want to be explosive out of the blocks. You're not running that first 100 like you're running 100, but you do want to get out of that thing, right?
So what percentage would you say you want to be towards your max?
I would say you probably want to be somewhere between that 85, 75. As you're exploding out of those blocks, you've got yourself, you know, to the top of that first curve and you're working your way down the backstretch. Now you want to be somewhere about 75, 85%, you know, of what you're doing. You don't want to get to that first 200 at full speed. You want to have I always like to say you want to have goals in mind, right? So if you have a number that you want to get to as far as that 400 meters going, you know, you want to put yourself in a place to where you can attain that first part of the race. Because here's the one misconception that a lot of people get with that, right? They in even older guys, I still see guys in high school that try to do it this way, right? Experienced guys, they think that they're going to save what they got for that last 100 meter and walk guys down. It's not going to happen, right? What you'll find is when you PR or when you run your worst race of your life, right? That last 100 meters is probably the same. It's probably the same. It's weird. It's weird hearing it that way, but when you really sit back and look at it, it's probably going to end up that, right?
Yeah.
So what you want to do, man, is you really want to focus on that first half of the race, right? That first, I always say, man, what you give on the front end is going to carry you through the back end, right? And that's the best way that I can put it. You know, man, you gotta work that front end, man. That front end of that race, what you put into it is what's going to give you your reward on the back end. I from my own personal experience, what you also want to get to, man, is you want to get to that point where that race almost feels like you really haven't even worked, right? And I've said this myself in my own PRs, and I've even asked my son when he's PR'd on something, hey man, are you tired? You know, when you got done with that, and the answer was quickly, no, I'm not tired at all. And that's exactly what I experienced the same time, you know, when I PR'd, you know, back 30 years ago when I was doing it. You know, it's just, you know, it's what you tend to realize is once you're doing that thing right, you've planned it out, you're in shape, and you said she's a soccer player, so I know she's in shape. So it should be, you know, it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to hurt. But you know, again, man, what you give on that front end is really, it's going to carry you through the back end. And, you know, that's where your race is really won at. It's in that first 200 meters, man. You know, it's hard to swallow that, but you know, if you stick to that game plan, you know, and really work that, man, you'll start to get results out of that.
Man, I really appreciate that advice. As soon as we get off there, I'm gonna actually tell her what you just told me, and then tell her to go rewatch the end of this so she can hear it herself. But this is why we had the Pops Pod here, people. They will answer any question. It doesn't have to be football related. It doesn't have to be even necessarily NIL or recruiting related. It could just be anything. These guys are sports dads. They've done a lot of this. They've done their kids have done it if they haven't done it, or they know someone that's done it. Right. So if you guys have any questions, you could always shoot them in the comment section. You can email us at the Buckeye Boys at gmail.com, and we'll make sure to get it to those guys, because they're Duke and Daniel are full of a lot of knowledge, and so is Deetra as well. Don't forget she was the athlete. You never know. Devin might have got his athleticism from his mom. I'm just saying.
If you ask her, she's probably going to tell you that, and she's
Yeah.
the track star of the house. I was a scrub. You know, I had to quit. So
man, you play D1 ball too, man. Stop it. We got it from both of you guys. I'll just jabbing at you a little bit.
Nah, man, it's all good. Man. We have a lot of fun with that around the house, man. And you know that you brought it up, man. Shout out to my guy Duke. Hopefully we get Duke back out here next Friday. I heard he's out of the country, man. I heard he's out like riding elephants and slaying lions.
Must be nice, right?
Like, yeah, it must be, man. I mean, you know, he's out feeding zebras to lions or something. I don't know, but
right.
Yeah, you know, man. You know, shout out to Duke, man. You know, hope we get you back soon, man. Safe travels to you and the family.
Absolutely. So Deidre said, Daniel, what time should she be running when she hits the 200 mark? So just to give you a little baseline, she first time she's ever run the 400 in her entire life, she ran in 60 seconds. She said she wasn't running her hardest.
Okay.
So I think the state leader right now, she ran 54:57, and my daughter's like, oh, I could hit 54.
Okay.
And so like that's her goal. So where should she be at?
That's man, 54 is rolling. That's I would say for a young lady, if she can hit 54, man, she's going to look to get on the podium at the end of the year. Yeah. You know, and that's just about anywhere. You know, so man, that's a great time, and if she can rock that, you know, man, that's something, man. You got yourself something. You're working with it. Now here's the way I would say that you want to break that down, right? So if your number's 54, right? Let's just use 60 as an example, right?
Yeah.
And so what you want to break that in half, right? So you know that obviously it's 30 and 30. And so what you always want to do, right? It depending on, you know, how you're kind of coming out with this thing, and you know, man, if there's any track coaches in here, man, you know, if you happen to be watching this, man, don't rip me up too bad. You know, I know there's some really great guys out there. You know, but what you want to do, man, is you want to split that thing in half, and then what you always want to kind of add a little time to the back end. Yeah, man, that 54 is rolling for a young lady. But what you always you're gonna have, again, you're gonna have more on the back end as far as time that you're gonna put into it. And so what I would always tell you is you're going to add somewhere between, you know, 3.5 to 5 seconds to that second number, right? And so you're just doing the math on that, right? And so if 54 is a number, you want to cut that in half to where, you know, that back end number gives you what you should be finishing at. So that tells you what you should be getting to that 200 mark at, right?
Yeah.
And so again, you know, it's just all in a number that you can achieve. So I would say just using 60 as a baseline, you know, so that means that I need to get to that first 200 somewhere under 26 seconds. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that you know, some guys that might be full speed. For some people that's half speed. But I mean, you just got to work the math on that, and then you know, just kind of go from there, man, on how you feel comfortable.
Absolutely. So do you think I should base it off the 60 because she said she wasn't running her hardest, or do you think this first meet I should just take it for what it is and then use this as a baseline?
Yeah, you probably want to just kind of take it for what it is. You know, again, if you know, man, always I would tell you, you know, pull out your stopwatch, man, and if you can, you know, put it on tape and you know, and just go back and watch that thing over and over again, and just, you know, have her kind of sit down and watch that thing, and then just kind of talk through the race as you're watching the race, right? Just, hey, how did you feel when you came out of the block? Did you feel like, you know, were you having to, you know, work a little bit too much because the people up in front of you were really pushing, or were you kind of lagging by, you know, that kind of thing? How'd you feel in the backstretch? You know, when you got to that 200 mark, you know, did you reinvest into the race, or did you just kind of loaf through that thing and just kind of cruise it out? So I mean, you know, those are all the kind of things that you kind of want to talk about as you're doing that. You know, and again, you know, that 400 meter race, you know, that's that. Hey, you know, they don't call it the man's race for nothing, because that's exactly what it is. They call that the man's race, man. And you're out there, man. You man, you were really in your head, and you got a lot of time to think. About what's really going on in your body when you're out there running that quarter, man. It's a monster. But I will say that you know, and I'm sure, you know, anybody who's been out there, Deidre, she can attest to this. If you can run a good quarter, you can run anything. You can run a good quarter. You're going to run a good 2. You can probably run a good 1. You can probably run a good 8.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that's I would say that's the race that you know, that's kind of the benchmark race. As far as, you know, that to me, when I go out to places and, hey, yeah, you got these little guys that can, really fly and run these hundreds, but I mean, they can't even run a 200, which is weird. Right. But then, you get these real studs out there, man. What you find, the real horses, these guys that, running solid quarters, man, they'll run you down in a 2 and they can run 100. So, I mean, I think that if there's any race out there that you kind of want to model and work off of, it's the quarter.
Yeah. So I appreciate you for your time. I'm gonna get you out of here.
Shoot, man. I say, man, we love it.
Yeah.
Again, man, kind of, sorry we should have got back on this thing again, last week, man. We're gonna try to be a little bit more consistent with this thing and try to do this thing a little bit more often as we can, man. And really appreciate everybody out there, all the support with everybody, man. We love it, man. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you for all the knowledge, man. You and Duke have helped me out so much, even off the camera and everything. I don't even know if you guys even realize it, but one day I'm gonna tell you guys about how much Duke and Daniel have helped me and my daughter through this recruiting process. They've been a big go-to for me. So I appreciate you. Do you have any final comments for Buckeye Nation?
I would say, man, just appreciate everybody. Check us out again next time in a couple weeks here, man, on the Pops Pod, man. Love it. Thank you.
Yes, and for me, hit that like, comment, and subscribe. Share it. It helps us out, especially Pops Pod. I think a lot of people need to be watching this. A lot of people that have kids, they should be over here watching, getting this knowledge, and in the comment section, just asking questions live, so that way we can ask Duke and Daniel, because they've gone through it. They've gone through it themselves. They've gone through it with their sons. So, just spread this and let's get it out there so everybody can get the help that they need. On that note, thank you for joining us on another beautiful Pops Pod edition, and go Bucks. OH.
IO.